see here. It is supposed to. It's not it. Shall content. Reload. Here it is. This should be it. Right? Yes. Should be there. And that. Let's see. Let's see. Let's try and get this root item off. Nice, nice. Let's get going.
Hill today, focusing, of course, on that explosive Senate intelligence hearing on global threats and the revelation that top administration officials texted plans for military strikes in Yemen to a journalist. On Capitol Hill today, focusing, of course, on that explosive Senate intelligence hearing on global threats and the revelation that top administration officials texted plans for military strikes in Yemen to a journalist. But before that hearing, members of the Senate Armed Services Committee and officials from the Pentagon met in private. We're told that briefing focused on how the military is responding to drones. Remember, these last year's dramatic increase in drone activity all across the Northeast. NewsNation's Rich McHugh was covering it then. He's covering it now, joins us live. So, Rich, what are we learning about today's meeting?
Hi, Nicole. So the Senate Armed Services Committee met with members of the military. The meeting lasted about an hour in a very sensitive area of the Capitol building. We spoke with senators on the way out. They were very tight-lipped about what they discussed. Senator Tommy Tuberville, we asked him what was discussed. He said drones. We asked, did you learn anything from the Department of Defense about those drones over the Northeast and New Jersey? Here's what he had to say. He downplayed essentially that these were anything but personal or local drones. Take a listen.
We're going to run into that when you sell them over the counter. You're going to continue to have problems with that. You hate to put regulations on all that, but eventually that. That's going to happen when you have more and more access to the bigger drones, the drones that go farther, cameras, have different things on them. You know, they can be very dangerous used as a weapon. But again, it's all about catching up. Up with technology, and again, anything that's unmanned can be used in a lot of different ways, as we're seeing overseas.
But here's the thing. The chair of the Armed Services Committee did not downplay this. Senator Roger Wicker of Mississippi made the bombshell claim to CBS News last week that the Pentagon and the National Security Advisors are still mystified about the drone activity last year. And after key revelations from the NORAD NORTHCOM Chief General Gregory Guillot at the previous Armed Services Committee and threat about these drones, here's what he had to say.
Senator, the primary threat I see for them in the way they've been operating is detection and perhaps surveillance of sensitive capabilities on our installations. There There were 350 detections reported last year on military installations, and that was 350 over a total of 100 different installations of all types and levels of security.
Yeah.
Now, what these officials are saying essentially runs contrary to what the White House apparently told us back in January. They said that these drones were authorized by the FAA. The FAA, when I asked, directed us back to the White House for comment, Nicole.
All right, so Rich, you were in New Jersey speaking with law enforcement officials there throughout all of this. What are they saying?
I checked in with them again this morning. Two of the sheriffs that I've been in regular contact with said they've stopped seeing these drones. They still see the planes, but they've stopped seeing the drones, and they're kind of upset about the lack of information that they've been given. I spoke with Sheriff Sean Golden. He's the sheriff of Monmouth County, kind of the epicenter of this whole ordeal last December. Here's what he had to say.
I think in this day and age,
Okay, JFK assassination and mafia theories are the confidential, classified Kennedy documents. That's what we're talking about right now. It's all over the news. Everybody's talking about it. I did a piece on Piers Morgan earlier. It's big news, and rightfully so. It should be. For those of you that are not my age, you weren't born when Kennedy was killed, I got to tell you this. Back in 1963, I was 12 years old, and I'll never forget, I was sitting out on my patio in the backyard of my house on Long Island. We had moved at that point, and that's all I heard. Kennedy was shot, Kennedy was shot. It was on television. I walked in the house, and my father, who was in there talking to my mother, and I'm going to tie this in later on, my mother said, "Oh my God, Kennedy is shot. What a shame." And my father looked at her and said, what do you mean a shame? That rat, whatever name he called him, I don't want to say it, he should be dead. My father said it just like that. I'll never forget. I was kind of surprised. I didn't question him about it. But, and I'm going to tie this in later on. What also happened at that point, we didn't have cable TV. We didn't have social media, obviously. We didn't have smartphones or anything like that. All we had was network television. And for the next several days, 3, 4, 5, 6 days, I don't remember how long, it might have been longer than that, on network television, every other show was preempted, and all we saw was information and video and things about Kennedy. The entire news, 24/7, it didn't stop, nonstop, all about Kennedy, to a point where I'm a 12-year-old kid. It's like, enough already. You would go out in the streets, neighbors, people were crying. They were in mourning over this. This was a huge, huge, huge deal, this assassination attempt. And why am I saying this? Because here we are 63 years later, and we still don't have all the information. Why are we, the American public, not entitled to this? Why not? They're going to give you all sorts of excuses. Well, there's, classified information and we can't reveal certain things. Why not? If this was a plot by Cuba, if this was a plot by Russia, if there were why shouldn't we know about this? We're entitled to know about this. It leads me to believe, and I'm going to get into it a little bit more, this is a huge cover-up. The Warren Commission, a huge cover-up. All right? The information not being given to us, a huge cover-up. Redacted statements, a cover-up. All of this leads to that. And as we see more of these classified documents, I think we're going to see more of that. I think we're going to come to that conclusion. There's been a lot of conspiracy theories, but maybe some of these issues are going to be cleared up right now. Now, I'm going to speak about two things. I'm going to talk about some of the information that was released today. They're saying there's no bombshells, nothing, tremendous, but there are some things that are very interesting, and they tie in together. And then I want to talk about the mob's involvement in this or non-involvement. Some of you believe it didn't happen. A lot of people saying it didn't happen. The Warren Commission said no, the mob wasn't involved. I 100% disagree with that, and I'm going to tell you why. Based upon the knowledge that I have and the people that I've spoken to throughout my life with respect to this, my father included, and other people that were even higher up than my dad, because I spent 20 years in that life. We did a lot of conversation during this point about Kennedy and about other things. So I want to get into that. Also, Robert Kennedy recently did an interview, and in that interview, he refuted, said the mob had nothing to do with this, and he went on and on and on. I like RFK Jr. I like him. I think he's going to do a great job now in the position that he's in to make our country healthier again. However, I have some issues with some of the things that he said, and I'm going to respond to that. So we're going to get into both of that. I'm going to be following this quite a bit. And people, I'm going to tell you this. I can't do it all on YouTube. I only have certain boundaries that I have to follow on YouTube. But I'm really into this. And if you want to hear more about this, I'm going to get documentation and all of that. We're going to really follow it, in depth. Go to my platform, go to the link below, go to my platform, join the platform. We're going to get into this, heavily, but I'm going to do a lot of it now. I want you to know that. So let's talk first about some of the things that we found out just today. And I have notes here, so I'm going to read them. I don't want to miss anything. But here's something that we found out today. Let me take this off. My friends, I know something about having power. Whether it's on the streets or in the media, it's all about gaslighting of mainstream media. Right now, you can get the same tools I use for we know, we've heard this, okay, I'm not going to get into full detail. Kennedy did not like the CIA. He was upset with them over the Bay of Pigs. Kennedy did not like the Secret Service. This guy enough, because if you're following him for several months and you have a dossier and you have all this information on him, you know there was another agent also who had involvement with in the know the right way. Get to ground news. It's an offer that you shouldn't refuse. There were the two CIA agents that had involvement with Lee Harvey Oswald. One of them, this guy by the name of Englewood or Angleton, I think his name was, he recruited Lee Harvey Oswald when he was 20 years old. They had a file, a dossier on Lee Harvey Oswald for many, many years, right up until the assassination of Kennedy. Right after. So they were following this guy. They were watching him. They were following him. You know, there was another agent also who had involvement with him. Now, this tells me one thing. Either the CIA was somehow involved and complicit with Oswald with respect to the assassination, or they were terribly inept. Terribly. They didn't follow this guy enough, because if you're following him for several months and you have a dossier and you have all this information on him, you know that he visited Cuba, you know that he visited Russia. Why are you not following him? What is he doing? Why? So either they were terribly inept or they had something to do with Oswald and the assassination. Now, we know, we've heard this, okay, I'm not going to get into full detail. Kennedy did not like the CIA. He was upset with them over the Bay of Pigs. Kennedy did not like the Secret Service. He badmouthed them on many occasions. I understand the Secret Service did not like him. So there's a couple of things here that, are going to add up in some way. And again, this is not a conspiracy theory. These are things now that we're putting together. And let's see how much of the documentation we really get and what they really say. How much is redacted? How much are missing? I understand Pam Bondi got 2,000 more pages of documents or 2,000 more documents that, newly revealed by the FBI that they didn't know even existed before. So let me start to read some of this stuff first about what we've uncovered recently. And then I want to go into RFK's interview with respect to the mob and the involvement with JFK. And I'm going to tell you what, my feeling is on it, what he had to say. Okay. So again, we see Oswald had visited the Soviet and Cuban embassies in Mexico City weeks before the assassination. Why was he doing that? We don't know. Okay. But maybe this is all going to come together. Higher-ups dismissed these concerns despite clear warning signs. Files suggest the CIA was either complicit or incompetent, like I said earlier, in handling intelligence prior to the assassination. Evidence of a second shooter. We know all along they've been talking about a second shooter. And I have to say this. People, understand this. I don't know if you know this, but do you know that JFK's brain, after the assassination, after the autopsy, was placed in the National Archives? Do you know they claim it was lost? Lost. How do they lose the brain of our president that was placed in the National Archives and say it was lost? Lost. Not stolen, not some, mischievous thing happening, but lost. I'm sorry, I can't believe that. How do you lose a brain? What did you do? With it? Take it out and, leave it in the bathroom by mistake or bring it out in your car? I mean, this is ridiculous. If that brain is missing, there's a reason why. Or, let's think of this. Maybe it was never really his brain to begin with that they put in the National Archives. Either way, this is ridiculous. And maybe because there was a second shooter. You know, they're saying that, that he bounced back in the car. Well, if he got shot from behind, why did he bounce back? Why didn't he just go forward and drop? So there's a lot of different things. I don't want to get into the conspiracy theories, but it's pretty shady and suspicious that the brain was lost. I don't know if you know this. It wasn't lost. Obviously, somebody got rid of the brain for whatever reason. Let's keep going. New files contradict the Warren Commission's lone gunman theory. All right, that's what we're finding out. Ballistic reports and witness testimonies indicate the official timeline, 3 shots in 8.6 seconds, does not add up. So again, another shooter. And remember, the Warren Commission said no, it was only Oswald. That was it, period. Now I'm going to tie this together. Documents suggest a shot may have come from the grassy knoll, which meant that he would have been shot in his forehead, in front, not behind. Previously suppressed statement from a Dallas bystander who was forced to remain silent by government agents said that they saw somebody on the grassy knoll with a shot. Supports the House Select Committee on Assassination's 1979 conclusion of a high probability of a second shooter. So why did the Warren Commission gloss this over? Why? I'm going to tie that in. Okay, let's get to some of the mafia connections according to what we're finding out now, and I'm going to add my 2 cents worth on this. Number 1, wiretap transcripts suggest organized crime involvement in the assassination plot. There's no question about that. Sam Giancana was heard on tape in a wiretap saying, "We killed the wrong Kennedy." He hated Robert Kennedy. We all hated Robert Kennedy. My father hated Robert Kennedy. My father believed until the day he died that it was Robert Kennedy that caused him all his trouble, that started all these investigations, and you know why. My dad allegedly had an affair with Marilyn Monroe. That's what he told me. I wasn't there to witness it, but it does make sense because prior to that, J. Edgar Hoover would never even admit that the mafia existed. All of a sudden, Robert F. Kennedy, after him having an affair with Marilyn Monroe, so they say, and I think there's enough evidence to prove that or to support that, Marilyn Monroe talked about my father. And at that point, Robert F. Kennedy called up Hoover and said, get this guy. And boy, did they get him. My father believes that. Whether it's true or not, Giancana was heard on tape in a wiretap saying, we killed the wrong Kennedy. He hated Robert Kennedy. We all hated Robert Kennedy. My father hated Robert Kennedy. My father believed until the day he died that it was Robert Kennedy that caused him all his trouble, that started all these investigations. And you know why? My dad allegedly had an affair with Marilyn Monroe. That's what he told me. I wasn't there to witness it, but it does make sense because prior to that, J. Edgar Hoover would never even admit that the mafia existed. All of a sudden, Robert F. Kennedy, after him having an affair with Marilyn Monroe, so they say, and I think there's enough evidence to prove that or to support that, Marilyn Monroe talked about my father. And at that point, Robert F. Kennedy called up Hoover and said, get this guy. And boy, did they get him. My father believes that. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. But this is something that he told me. And I have to say, I put some weight on this. I really do. Okay, let's keep going. Mob bosses discussed the need to take care of Kennedy. No doubt, it's all over wiretaps that they spoke, that they heard, discussions about taking care of Kennedy. Why? We hated Kennedy. When I say we, I'm going back to my former life for a number of reasons. Number one, this is the truth, 100%, that the mob in Chicago and even in New York was complicit in this or helped in this, helped John F. Kennedy win the election in 1960, I think it was, against Richard Nixon. It was razor, razor, razor tight. The victory JFK had was razor thin, and it was because Chicago and Illinois was supported him. And I know a lot of people are saying different things. Well, how could the mob do that? We had tremendous control in Chicago, going back to the days of Al Capone, and even until today. It's just it's a corrupt town in many, many ways. So yes, and the deal was made with Joseph Kennedy. I'm going to get into that a little bit more when I talk about RFK and what he had to say. The deal was made with Joseph Kennedy that if we delivered the state of Illinois to JFK, then we would have, number one, certain access to the White House through Joe Kennedy. That's what we believed. And number two, the Attorney General would stay off of us. Leave us alone. We didn't want any law enforcement on us. Naturally, they had to do a few things to make believe that they were doing something, but they weren't going to come after us a hard way, the same way Hoover didn't come after us in a hard way. I heard that my entire life. There's no reason for people in the know, Persico, Fat Tony, my father, Joe Colombo even, there was no reason for them to tell me this. Other people that were around at that time, they don't brag about things like this, not guys in that level. They don't. They don't talk about it. I heard it consistently in discussions my whole life. I even heard things how it was planned. And let me get to this. Jack Ruby, the Warren Commission said that Jack Ruby had no mob affiliation association association whatsoever. That's an absolute lie. It's a lie. 100% lie. He was absolutely linked with us going back to the days of Al Capone and Sam Giancana in Chicago, and even Anthony Accardo, Tony Accardo. And he also had affiliations with Carlos Marcello. He was running strip clubs for Carlos Marcello out of New Orleans. He was in Dallas. And he had a designated person, I forget the guy's name, mob guy, very close with Marcello's, that he was answering to. He was a thug, 100%. The guy was a thug, and he was totally mobbed up, without a doubt. I want to get into a little bit more on the Warren Commission, and everybody has denied that Jack Ruby had any kind of mob involvement. And if you see that in any of these reports, throw the report out. It's garbage. I'm telling you right now, because they're lying. Let's keep going. There were documentation association whatsoever. That's an absolute lie. It's a lie. 100% lie. I heard that my entire life. There's no reason for people in the know, Persico, Fat Tony, my father, Joe Colombo even, there was no reason for them to tell me this. Other people that were around at that time, they don't brag about things like this, not guys in that level. They don't. They don't talk about it. I heard it consistently in discussions my whole life. I even heard things how it was planned. And let me get to this. Jack Ruby, the Warren Commission said that Jack Ruby had no mob affiliation association whatsoever. That's an absolute lie. It's a lie. 100% lie. He was absolutely linked with us going back to the days of Al Capone and Sam Giancana in Chicago, and even Anthony Accardo, Tony Accardo. And he also had affiliations with Carlos Marcello. He was running strip clubs for Carlos Marcello out of New Orleans. He was in Dallas. And he had a designated person, I forget the guy's name, mob guy, very close with Marcello's, that he was answering to. He was a thug, 100%. The guy was a thug, and he was totally mobbed up, without a doubt. I want to get into a little bit more on the Warren Commission, and everybody has denied that Jack Ruby had any kind of mob involvement. And if you see that in any of these reports, throw the report out. It's garbage. I'm telling you right now, because they're lying. Let's keep going. There were documents that linked Chicago mob bosses to training Cuban militiamen. I never heard that. I never knew that, I'll be honest with you. And this is just more evidence, more information to show the mob's involvement that I'm going to get into in a minute. It suggests a possible coalition between mobsters, anti-Castro Cubans, and rogue CIA elements. Now, let me tell you something about this. The CIA, this is a fact, it's been documented, it's a matter of public record, that the CIA came to us on at least two occasions. At least two occasions. Number one, they came to Lucky Luciano through Meyer Lansky, and they needed help through World War II. They wanted the armed forces, the Allied forces, to be able to land in Sicily, and Luciano, who had tremendous leverage there. He allowed that to happen. The CIA came to him. Okay, that's number one. Fact. Number two, when they wanted to assassinate Castro after the revolution, they came to us again. And there was a plot to poison Castro. It didn't work out, but they absolutely came to us. Fact. Documented, no dispute. The evidence is there to support it. So what happened here is that I believe it's definitely somebody from the government. I have to believe it's the CIA. Do I have any direct evidence of an actual CIA agent? No. But was I told it was the CIA? Yes. Definitely a government official or government people that came to the mob and said, listen, we got something going. We need to assassinate Lee Harvey Oswald. Why? Well, because he wasn't just a patsy, but he had information that they didn't want anybody to know. So they came to us to help in that regard. And so who do we designate? Jack Ruby, who's in Dallas, who's totally connected, who even he was paying off police in his strip clubs to stay around. He had all these connections. That's why he was able to get into the police station. And he was the one guy into the police station with a gun He got into the station, and when they brought Lee Harvey Oswald through, Jack Ruby went through the crowd and boom, shot him. 100%. No question, that was all over television. We saw it live. Jack Ruby was designated by the mob out of Chicago, okay, and Giancana was involved in this, no doubt, okay, to assassinate Lee Harvey Oswald. And you know what? We didn't care about the Kennedys at that point. Not at all, because they broke their word. Robert F. Kennedy came after us in a big way. You know, the whole thing with Hoffa. He came after Sam Giancana. He dropped him in the middle of a forest or something. You know, we hated RFK. We hated the Kennedys at that point. Why wouldn't we go along with it? 100%. We did it. It was revenge. Sam Giancana, we shot the wrong Kennedy, or we killed the wrong Kennedy. It's on tape. Why would he make an admission like that? Because it really happened. It's the truth. So anytime they try to deny that, and if that doesn't appear anywhere in these documents, or if they say Jack Ruby had no mob affiliation, it's a lie. They're covering up something. So here's my belief on this from everything that I've heard my life, you know, from the time I was old enough to hear it, 12 years old when my father made that statement that I never tied into anything. I was 12 years old until later on when I had discussions with my dad. And he and I talked privately. And my dad had nothing to do with it, but my dad was the underboss of the Colombo family. He knew what was going on. And that was right then and there, in the 60s. That was my dad's time. So from then to everybody else that I heard it from, in discussions, just sitting down, if we were playing, in a back room, and I even asked a question a couple of times about it, 100% mob hit. Jack Ruby was designated to kill Oswald to help the government at that point in time because they hated the Kennedys. That, you can take that to the bank, and I don't care what anybody else says. And I want to see what happens in those documents. Let me continue. Potential motive, revenge for Kennedy's perceived betrayal during the Bay of Pigs invasion. Now that's out there. This is some things that they're finding now. This is what's coming out in the reports in a way. Additional bombshells. They're saying a CIA memo reveals that certain officer funneled $25,000 to an anti-Castro group linked to Oswald. Okay? Where was the CIA? Were they that incompetent? Or were they allowing Oswald, or were they promoting Oswald to do this? Okay? Evidence of intensified CIA surveillance of Oswald's Cuban intelligence contacts with no subsequent action. So they knew he's dealing with Cuba. Cuba's our enemy. They're communists. Remember the Bay of Pigs? Okay, Russia wanted to put missiles in Cuba. This was what it was all about. Why did they leave Oswald alone? Are they that incompetent, or were they promoting him to do what he was doing because they hated the Kennedys? FBI record of a phone call predicting Oswald's murder by Jack Ruby before it happened. Listen to what I just said. Let me read it again. FBI record of a phone call predicting Oswald's murder by Jack Ruby before it even happened. It suggests foreknowledge of events that were not disclosed to investigation committees. Now, why were they not disclosed? Maybe what I'm saying is correct. Maybe what I've heard all my life was correct. That they knew in advance that Jack Ruby was the designated shooter to kill Oswald. Perfect guy. Has his base in Dallas, mob connected, knows the police, paying them off. He does the deal. So, the conclusion here, it's becoming more evident that there was government involvement here. Now, I understand there was a phone call between Johnson and someone else right after the killing that we don't know. We don't have a record of that call yet, but it could be very telling because, again, theories that Johnson was somehow involved in this. I don't know about that. I never heard it, and I'm not going to suggest anything. We'll see if anything like that comes out. But what are we concluding so far? The Warren Commission was not on the level. Absolutely not. Very strong evidence of a second shooter. Very strong evidence that the CIA was either totally incompetent because they had their mark on Oswald, or they were promoting Oswald to let him do what he did. And makes perfect sense that they had to get rid of him afterwards. They didn't trust him. They didn't know what he was going to say. So they make a deal with the mob who hated the Kennedys, and they designate Jack Ruby, and Jack Ruby eliminates Oswald. Now there was nobody else at that point, okay, that could blow the whistle on them because Oswald was working with the CIA. Remember that. He was working with the CIA. All right, so that's what we know so far. Okay, we know this. CIA, very shady, most likely involved in this. We're going to see. Mob, I can tell you definitely, and now the evidence is coming out to support it. They knew Jack Ruby was the shooter. They have it on tape. Mob talking about taking Kennedy out. Sam Giancana, we killed the wrong Kennedy. It goes on and on and on. I think the evidence supporting what I know to be true all my life is coming forward. Now, let's get to Robert F. Kennedy. And I'm going to get into this in great detail. I'm going to get the documentation. We're going to go through it because this is very, very interesting.
My big head. What's this? Well, let's keep going, huh? No, let's keep going. Let's do this, right?
And hey, this was a president. He was beloved. Camelot. Jackie hated the Kennedys. And they designate Jack Ruby, and Jack Ruby eliminates Oswald. Now there was nobody else at that point, okay, that could blow the whistle on them. Because Oswald was working with the CIA.
Yep.
Remember that. He was working with the CIA.
Yep.
All right, so that's what we know so far. Okay, we know this. CIA, very shady, most likely involved in this. We're going to see.
Yeah, they were.
Mob, I can tell you definitely, and now the evidence is coming out to support it. They knew Jack Ruby was the shooter. They have it on tape. Mob talking about taking Kennedy out. Sam Giancana, we killed the wrong Kennedy. It goes on and on and on. I think the evidence supporting and some of the things that he said. Now, again, I want you to understand, I like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I really do. I'm very supportive of his nomination, his appointment, I should say, to the position that he's got now. I think he's going to help make America healthy again. I'm supportive of him, but I want to go through this interview and talk about some of the things that he said. Okay, this was a recent one. Joseph Kennedy and the bootlegging rumors. RFK Jr. denies the bootlegging allegations against his grandfather, Joseph Kennedy, and this was his quote. Quote from Robert F. Kennedy. Now, I just want to address this rumor because from what I understand, it's not true. There was always the rumor that he was involved in liquor bootlegging, and he was not. Okay, I have to respectfully disagree with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I heard this directly from my father. I heard it from Persico. I heard it from Colombo. He absolutely was a bootlegger, and I was even told that he was tied up with Frank Costello, and that Frank Costello wanted to kill him at one point because of a deal that went bad, or because he didn't trust him, whatever. I heard that. I heard it several times, and that's why Joe Kennedy had connections with the mob. It was his connection that helped get the state of Illinois delivered to John F. Kennedy for that election. Yeah. Okay, so I respectfully disagree with that. I would take that to my grave. I believe it 100% based upon what I know. So let's keep going. He explains further that Joseph Kennedy legally entered the liquor business by purchasing pinch whiskey in Scotland just before the repeal of Prohibition. Well, and here's what he had to say. The way that Prohibition ended is you had to have 26 states disavow Prohibition in order to hold to the Constitution. So when it got close, they knew it was coming. So he went over to Scotland and he bought pinch whiskey. He did it with James Roosevelt, who was the president's son. Okay, but did he just do that out of the blue? No. He may have done that. Yeah, but he was a bootlegger before. He knew how lucrative the business was. He worked with these guys. He was a bootlegger. So it would make sense after he made all that money bootlegging that he said, hey, let me buy a legitimate deal. I'm a Kennedy. I'm going to have my sons run for public office. Let me buy a legitimate liquor company. It ties in. There's nothing in there that says that he wasn't a bootlegger. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. just said he's denying the rumor. All right, let's keep going with respect to that. RFK Jr. claims the CIA spread the bootlegging rumor after JFK's assassination to deflect from their own possible involvement. Well, they may have talked about it, but remember, if they're dealing with the mob, they also knew, of Joe Kennedy's involvement with the mob and with bootlegging. They knew, no doubt. So here's what he had to say, RFK. He was never accused of being a bootlegger until after he had his stroke and couldn't defend himself, and my uncle was killed. That was in 1964. At that point, the CIA was trying to, let's say, disparage the rumors that they may have had something to do with President Kennedy's assassination. Well, maybe they were covering it up, the fact that he was a bootlegger, until after the assassination. Maybe they covered up, not that they spread a rumor, but maybe they covered it up, that he was a bootlegger because this was a political family and they didn't want that to get out. But afterwards, they didn't care, and they let it go. So nothing that Robert F. Kennedy is saying really refutes or disputes anything that I'm saying about the mob's involvement and about Joe Kennedy being a bootlegger. Let's go on. RFK Jr. refutes the claim that the Chicago Mafia helped JFK win the presidency and was later betrayed when RFK cracked down on organized crime. I totally disagree with him on that, and I've stated why. But here's what RFK said. Everybody who's looked at this issue, and there are a lot of
right. The thing is, I think RFK could have. I think it's about his family honor. I believe he's trying to save his family honor and stuff like that. That's why he's refuting it. But I think deep down, I don't know. I don't see how he could argue with that. But I think it's just about family honor. That's why he's refuting it. But a lot of us know otherwise, that, he did, they did, connected to the mob, Joseph Kennedy, and they helped get them into office. They did. Okay? Nixon knew that as well, so that's how you get into office. Nixon very much do.
Writers out there who would have liked to find some evidence. There's a guy called David Horowitz who spent years looking for that evidence and finally said, it's not there. It didn't happen. Well, did he not look at Jack Ruby, the killer of Oswald? Did he not realize that Jack Ruby was totally mobbed up? Did he not hear that the tape recording? Did he not hear any of the surveillance documents that prove or that show that the mob had involvement here? Did they not hear Sam Giancana's recording saying, we killed the wrong Kennedy? He didn't do such great investigative work on my part. The evidence is there that the mob was involved. And if he didn't look into Jack Ruby, or he did look into Jack Ruby and said there was no connection, then the guy, I'm sorry, he's out there. He doesn't know what he's talking about.
Spaced out.
Explains that R.F. Kennedy humiliated and prosecuted Sam Giancana, making it unlikely that the mafia would later help JFK. Yeah, well, he did, but Sam Giancana wasn't the boss. If word came down from above, and Tony Accardo, and word came down from above that, hey, we want access to the White House and we want R.F. Kennedy to lay off of us. So this is how we're going to do it. It makes sense the other way. Okay, RFK was all over Sam Giancana. So to get them to back off, we helped them with this plot. Works both ways, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is public information. People can look this up. Might be on YouTube. I don't know. There's RFK, under, JFK, spearheaded these House hearings and had the mob, people from the mob, House, and with these hearings and stuff, Capitol Hill and other government hearings, he grilled these mobsters and stuff like that, and that was not the deal. It's like, we help you, you help us. Can't do that. Cross the red line. Both JFK and RFK did. You know, we get you into office, you lose. You get nothing for free from the mob. You don't. You know.
The hatred, okay, let me get this guy off my back because he's destroying us here, between Hoffa and everybody else, destroying us. Okay, so again, doesn't refute the fact that the mob was involved. RFK Jr. dismisses the idea that JFK's presidency was secured by mafia support. Now, what people are saying, this is a quote from him, is 6 months after that hearing, somehow my father, who was my uncle's campaign manager, then cuts a deal with Sam Giancana, who he ridiculed, who he's putting in jail, who he's attacked for years, and they make up, and Sam Giancana gives my uncle the White House. It doesn't make any sense. Sam Giancana wasn't the boss, number one. Tony Accardo was. That's number one. And secondly, people, it makes sense both ways. If there was a deal cut by the CIA who came to him and said, we're going to get RFK off your back, may have been unknown to RFK. I'm not saying RFK knew about that. I don't think he did. Obviously, he's not going to know that the CIA is plotting to kill his brother. But if they go to Giancana and they go to Accardo anyway and they say, hey, we'll get RFK off your back with the CIA, we'll back them.
Are you fucking kidding me? Yeah, I mean, if he do, he'd tell his brother. Yeah, of course, you know. I mean, you know, there's no mob loyalty with these two brothers, so they could say anything. Like, you know, his father, the Uncle Francie's father, that was different, you know. He wouldn't care if you were family so much. He ain't gonna tell you if they're out to kill you, you know, so.
Off, you help us out in this. Makes perfect sense. So I'm telling you the opposite of what RFK said. In order to get Robert F. Kennedy off of the mob's back, we help the CIA and they do the rest of the work. They get him off. Makes perfect sense. So I think RFK Jr.'s got this a little bit off. And again, this is what he heard. This is what he heard. RFK Jr. confirms that his father led an aggressive campaign against the mafia, increasing organized crime convictions by 800%. Absolutely. Quote, my father really felt that it was the gravest threat to American democracy because the mafia had infiltrated all of these institutions that were part of our democracy, including the labor unions, but also the judiciary. They controlled a lot of judges. They owned a lot of congresspeople. Without a doubt. RFK was all over us. He's actually confirming what I'm saying. So to get RFK off our back, what do? We make a deal with the CIA to help them out, and they say they're going to back off Kennedy.
Right.
That's the deal. Jimmy Hoffa was RFK's biggest enemy, and Hoffa even hired people to assassinate him. I agree with that. Quote from RFK Jr. Right. Hoffa hired a guy to shoot him in the swimming pool because my father swam every morning. And he hired another guy to firebomb our house to kill our whole family. Well, wouldn't you then want to get these guys off your back in any way you possibly could? Sam Giancana, we killed the wrong Kennedy. He made that statement. It all fits in. RFK Jr. is not refuting the mob's involvement here. He's actually confirming it. Describes how the Teamsters harassed RFK family by constantly honking truck horns outside their house. Quote, our house was surrounded by roads and all day long there would be trucks going around our place blowing their horns from the Teamsters Union. Absolutely, but understand this, the Teamsters Union, the members did what they were told. If they were told vote the other way, they vote the other way. They did what they were told. We owned the Teamsters.
Yep.
100%. They did what we told them to do. I don't think there's any dispute with that. Okay, JFK assassination and mafia theories. RFK Jr. reveals his father's first reaction to JFK's assassination was to ask if the CIA was responsible. Again, this is just confirming it. Quote, my father asked John McCone, who was head of the CIA, did the CIA do this to my brother? Why would RFK ask that? Why? Think about that. Why would he even think of that? Because he knew the CIA hated his brother. Hated.
That's the only reason. Yeah.
RFK Jr. believes the Warren Commission's lone gunman theory is false. Okay? Quote, nothing about Lee Harvey Oswald's life or the evidence suggests that he could have possibly been acting alone. We agree with that. Agree. There's good evidence that there was another shooter. The brain is gone. Kennedy goes back in the car. We can see it on video. If he was shot alone from the back of his head, he would have went
I
down.
think there was a third.
If he even got the shot in, Oswald, who knows?
I'm dead sure there was.
So we agree with that.
I'm dead sure.
Suggests that Jack Ruby, who killed Oswald, had deep ties to the mafia. He's confirming it. Listen to what he's saying. Quote, from JFK Jr., Jack Ruby worked for the mafia. He ran a strip club with what they called B-girls, women who were part of Carlos Marcello's organization. He is agreeing with that. So why did the Warren Commission say that Jack Ruby had no involvement with the mob?
Because they
You
were
see
part of the
this?
cover-up.
Here's
That's
RFK
why.
Jr. saying his father agreed that Jack Ruby, who would know more than him, he was the lead investigator against the mafia.
Yeah.
He knew that Ruby had connections to the mob.
Yeah.
So then why is RFK Jr. saying the mob wasn't involved in this at all? It's not making sense. He's kind of contradicting himself there.
Yeah, he is.
And again,
He is.
I'm not going out against him. This is what he was told, and this is what he...
It has to do with family honor. I believe it has to do with family honor by RFK isn't admitting to the reality of what, the mob connection with RFK Jr.'s grandfather, and, the promise that, RFK, JFK were supposed to help the mob back off, just back off, let the mob do their thing for getting them in office,
he heard. I believe RFK Jr. would be, honest. And if he knew that the mob was involved, he'd say it. Why not? I think he's just being misled at this point. Okay, well, you know what? I hope that says enough right now. RFK Jr. is actually confirming the mob's involvement here. So, people, look, I think this adds a lot of legitimacy to everything that I've been saying, and I've repeated this several times.
He's being nice. I mean, I got respect for RFK Jr. too, with Health Human Services and stuff like that. RFK Jr. is strong, or it's just not really for family honor and prestige, he just doesn't want to admit it. You don't in some ways. You don't. I mean, who wants to say their family was involved with Bob, or made a promise to Bob, you know what I'm saying? But with the criminal element, you don't want him, But,
I repeated it on Pierce Morgan. I think I talked about it with, some other people on Fox. And, I've said it time and time again. And people, again, I have no horse in this game. Nobody's paying me for this. I have nothing to gain other than I'm telling the truth.
yeah,
That's
no,
it. This is what I've heard all my life. This is what I believe to be true. And if I had to take a lie detector test, and the outcome of that test, based upon my honesty, was you either tell the truth or you die, I would say this is what I know to be the truth. That's it.
Same fucking thing.
So, my friends, that's it for today. This plot is going to really start to thicken and thicken and thicken. And you know what? Thank you, President Trump. Really, thank you. It's owed to the American people to find out how a beloved president by the people was assassinated. 60 some odd years later, we still don't have the truth. We have answers, but we don't have the truth. So I thank President Kennedy for doing this. I'm going to thank him with RFK, and I'm going to thank him with MLK, Martin Luther King Jr., because I think there's some things there that are kind of shady also. We deserve to know the truth.
There is, with the Martin Luther King Jr., there is CIA, or FBI stuff like that, cover up. They did not want him. They did not want a black president back then. They did not. He was a threat. Even though he was talking peace, I believe he would have helped this country. Anyways, last one is, let's see, David Grush, gonna be a whistleblower. I don't like this. I don't like
Tonight
this.
as well, a big development in the search for the truth about UFOs.
You're not going to get it. He's a part of the military-industrial complex. He believes in having secrets. So same with Jake Barber. Same thing. That they believe in the military-industrial complex and keeping stuff secret. I have no respect for that. I have no respect for the military-industrial complex. It needs to be destroyed. And I don't see us get any truth. In fact, it's been more of a cover-up with the Trump administration with this stuff. So, I don't know why this guy has a freaking happy face.
More than a year since the whistleblower, that guy right there, David Grush, sat down with News Nation's Ross Coulthart and shared some big revelations.
When you say crash retrieval, what do you mean?
These are retrieving non-human origin technical vehicles, call it spacecraft if you will, non-human, exotic origin vehicles that have either landed or crashed.
We have spacecraft from another species.
We do.
That interview caught the attention of Congress. Months later, Grush testified about his allegations. And now, News Nation, the first to report today that Grush is expected to soon head right back to the Capitol. Our Joe Khalil was the one who broke the story today. Joe K in the Capitol hallways, you might have a new visitor there for the next 4 months or so. David Grush, explain why.
Yeah, this is very significant. So look, this is probably the...
I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think so, because he said before that he believes in keeping things secret, and there's been a reason why I don't trust him. He's put out some facts and stuff like that, a good amount of facts, but I don't trust him to get the truth out. So,
world's most famous UAP UFO whistleblower. Right. Now you can throw congressional staffer on his resume. He's going to be working for Congressman Eric Burlison, a Republican who's been at the forefront of this. A very big deal. Burlison had been trying for some time to get Grush to work with him. Why this is important is because you've got a lot of activity over the last 2 years in this space. Right. You've had hearings, multiple, you've had private, classified briefings. A lot of lawmakers say they don't know the right questions even to ask to move the ball forward on this topic. Right. So Grush is someone who can...
They do. I mean, they have all these intelligence stuff. We have these criminals in charge, these thugs, these psychopaths in the government keeping this secret. These newscasters know nothing what they're talking about. Nothing. They shouldn't be newscasters talking about this stuff. They should have other people that know more about this. They can call out the government BS. But fortunately, this is what we have. This stuff. So
can give him lines of inquiry, can say, these are the threads to pull.
Why does he need to be an employee for that, though?
So he technically can do this in certain capacity, right? But when you're talking about getting people into a classified space or a setting, that's something that you need to have either clearance for or that you need to be on staff in some way. And I've actually heard that they may try to increase his clearance now that he is a congressional staffer. That also is an important element of this, and something that, he has had things that he has claimed. Grush.
The thing is, Congress is a part of the cover-up. They say that they want stuff out, and they're part of the cover-up. They're just as evil as the CIA, NSC, National Security Council, and these other intelligence organizations and defense contractors. Just as evil. So.
Has claimed he cannot say publicly if his clearance is higher. It's possible, he says, he might be able to disclose certain things. So all of that is something we're going to be watching.
And I think it's important to note here, Eric Burlison isn't just like some random congressman who says, oh, that's kind of interesting. Let's see if I can get him to work for me. He's one of the original along with Tim Burchett, Anna Paulina Luna, Jared Moskowitz, who have been asking a lot of questions here.
On the Oversight Committee, on the UAP caucus, so he's been very much at the center of this. And it was his idea, actually, to bring Grush on to his staff.
Thank you for watching. And make sure you...
I don't see any good that's happening so far. I just see another way of covering things up with these psychopaths, the government and everything like that. Dave Grush, I hope that I'm wrong with it, but he's him and Jake Barber believe in having a lot of this stuff covered up and this bullshit. They have their own agenda and stuff like that. Like, I guess some of the other people do. And everything. So, anyways, that's it.